All right, welcome to the Miracle Work. Welcome to the Miracle Work. Great to see you here, and great to continue with the chapters. We're actually looking at the chapters of A Course in Miracles, and we're only at chapter 2, and so we're continuing to take a really good look at certain parts that might not be that familiar to you, but are great to listen to, or to take another look at. So today is the reinterpretation of defenses, and that's quite a title that you don't get immediately. At least I don't. When I read it, a reinterpretation of defenses. Yeah, interesting. So we're going to see what that means today, and I prepared it in a specific way. So the chapter is huge, so I selected parts out of it that I think represent the content of the chapter, or the specific section that we're actually using. So the reinterpretation of defenses, and defending against what? We're going to see that too. So I'm happy that you joined here in this, say, it's not a study, but it's more like, oh yeah, of course. So it's an opening, it's an, yeah, that's the way to look at it. It's more like this, like you discover parts that you think like, why is this actually, and what does it tell me? And there's this this moment that we meet really, say, helpful for. And that is my experience of it. So yeah, everything that that's helpful to that, I try to put that in this meeting. So today it is like the reinterpretation of defenses. So the defenses you used against the atonement. And now the atonement, that's an interesting word, because we're going to use that today a lot. So what is the atonement? The atonement is, in fact, it's returning to the awareness of oneness. And in action, say in the miracle work ways of saying that, it would be like the undoing of what never was. That's the same as the atonement, like the undoing of what never was, and what is will reveal itself. So that's why these words are always a bit like not so easy to hear or to get a feel for. But this is all going to be, say, a contribution to that for sure. So one of the most important things is, why are we doing this? Why are we taking a look at the defenses while you actually want to get rid of them? So that's exactly the reason why we take a look at them, to allow healing to occur, and to, here it says, like to break open the inner light, and to break open the inner light in all situations, without exception, you could say. And that's why the idea of defense is continuously present. Like you are continuously in a defense against joining with what is, up to the moment that you join. But up to that point, you're defending, you're holding it off, so to speak. Like God is pouring His love to you, and you say like, yeah, wait a minute, just give me a moment. I gotta do something first. And which is really interesting, of course, as a principle. So you literally are, trying to find a balance between your defense against the truth and your allowance of the truth, as if that's up to you, and as if you're the regulator of that. And maybe you're not used to looking at this in this way, but yeah, you will, you will get used to this. So you can also say this, and that makes it even more clear, I think, is this, is like, as long as you perceive yourself in time, you're defending yourself against the truth. Because the truth will immediately take you out of it, because there is no such thing as time. See, these are all aspects of your existence, of your idea about yourself, that you live in time, in the year 2023, located in a certain place, undergoing a certain process, living in a longevity time stretch. All this is in fact defense. All this is in fact an interpretation of you, of what you think your life is. And you are wrong. You're wrong. Like you did not. You do this for a very specific reason, to in fact continue the separation. And then you might say, like, no, I want to wake up. I want to experience the love of God. It's like, well, if that would be so, you would immediately experience it. So apparently something is not quite clear there yet in your experience of yourself. And that's why this is, say, coming really handy to take another look at the defenses. Like defenses against separation is fine. You do that as much as you want. Say to deny the separation, to not deny any kind of idea of non-perfection is perfectly all right. But this is not where you use your defenses for most of the time. So anyhow, we're going to take a look at that. I prepared some information, some sheets that I love to share with you. The reinterpretation of defenses is essential to break open the inner light. See, and you might take a look at that for yourselves, like, well, that sounds great. I'd love to have that happen. I love that. I would love the inner light to break open in me. That's like an yes, immediately a yes. That's great. That's why we're here. That's why we are in a practice of awakening, a practice of transformation. So we love that idea. So here, since the separation, man's defenses have been used almost entirely to defend themselves against the atonement, and thus maintain their separation. Well, this is what I just shared with you. Like, but the reinterpretation of defenses is essential to break open the inner light. This is the motivation, literally, why we take a look at this now, today. Because apparently you have been holding on to the separation. So it's good to be aware of that then. The atonement was built into the space-time belief in order to set a limit on the need for the belief and ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement was built into the space-time belief in order to set a limit on the need for the belief and ultimately to make the learning complete. So it's like the atonement, the idea of the returning to oneness was brought into space-time, literally using, A Course in Miracles is like your blueprint out of space and time, out of the bondage of space and time. So the atonement was built into space-time belief in order to set a limit on the need for the belief. So to let you discover that you don't need a space-time continuum for your life, for your self. So the atonement then is the final lesson. So returning back to your oneness is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary, like this one, like we are using right now. This is like pretty literal classroom in which we learn about the atonement, but it's a temporary one. So it will finish too, it will be done in a moment. It's not going to take long. The atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. So the whole learning, as what we said in the beginning too, is like to make the learning complete, and also then to not be in that process anymore of learning. But up to that point we're still using it, and we use this classroom too. To discover that you don't need space and time to live, to experience yourself as the life that you truly live. And here it says, let all those who overestimate human intelligence remember this. Like it is just, the whole idea, the whole idea of space and time is temporary. And we know this as human beings too. It's like temporary. You are being born, you live for a while, maybe 80 to 100 years, maybe 120 years if you're like really going for it. But then that will finish too. So even that is, in the human belief system, is already set too. But we are using it a little different. So it's like the atonement was brought into space-time, into this time lineage, into this time frame, in order to see that it is not necessary to hang out in space and time any longer for you, to the point that you recognize your oneness with every aspect of creation. So it's like the actual reason why you're here is to see that this is not a necessity for your life, for you, in your recognition of yourself. And now that might cause all kinds of feelings for you. It's like, what? I'm having a good time here, or, well, I'm here, right? Where am I going then? Or any kind of consideration you can have. Like all these ideas that you hold about space and time are in fact your idea about what you're doing here, and your value system is related to it. So here it says too, it's like especially those like let all those who overestimate human intelligence remember this. Yeah, okay, so I have to press all these buttons all the time. So who overestimate human intelligence, let them remember this. This is a temporary place to learn, in fact, that you don't need this in order to live. And that's a very plain expression, very plain way of explaining it. But in fact, it's like this is your learning trajectory from humanness to your divine recognition of yourself. And that takes as long as it takes, but it's temporary. Like you will get it, you will get it. You will come to the experience that this dissolves because you have no need for it anymore. That your classroom literally dissolves because you have no need for it anymore. The time of learning ends at a certain point. So what takes over then is your, say, direct experience of the atonement. You become the atonement principle yourself. You come into a oneness experience of yourself in which, yeah, your learning is complete. So that's good to hear. But this is the basis of why we take a look at this, because in fact you cannot listen to this and not feel something of a defense, or something of a, well, I'm not sure, or like a reservation, or maybe you say like, I want more of it. Tell me more about it. That's also possible. Well, let's do that then. So the atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. Let all those who overestimate human intelligence remember this. So human intelligence is then, it's also temporary. It's not like an eternal capability to understand truth, and that would be of real value. You know, that's why it's an overestimation of human intelligence. It's not going to give you anything that you can use in eternity. So it's a temporary means, but it's temporarily highly valued by many. Look at this world. But don't forget, it's only a temporary that you look at this. Like, you can know everything about the stars, but what do you know about yourself? How do you know yourself to be? In what definition of yourself are you living? So here it says, the ability to learn has no value when change of understanding is no longer necessary. See, this is why we look at this as a temporary device. So the ability to learn has no value when change of understanding is no longer necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. And who is the eternally creative? This is you in your real being, in your true being. Eternally creative as an extension of God, like as a son of God. Eternally creating in the likeness of your Father. So what happened? So only after the separation was it necessary to direct the creative force to learning, because changed behavior had become mandatory. So only after the separation was it necessary to direct the creative force to learning. So we're actually using your mind to learn now, to get yourself out of an idea of separation and living in the separation with a certain way of behavior, with a certain way of what you think is normal, with an idea of your existence. So changes had to be made also in your behavior. So only after the separation was it necessary to direct the creative force to learning. So you're literally using the creative force of your mind to get yourself, to come out of the separation idea. The atonement is the device by which he can free himself from the past as he goes ahead. The atonement is the device by which he can free himself from the past as he goes ahead. See, this is an important part of the atonement that is taking place. It's like you're freeing yourself from the past. It undoes his past errors, thus making it unnecessary for him to keep retracing his steps without advancing toward his return. In this sense, the atonement saves time, but like the miracle which serves it, it does not abolish time. It does not abolish it. As long as there's a need for atonement, there's a need for time. So this is interesting to take a look at this. It's like the atonement works in time. You know, it's like it undoes past mistakes. It undoes, say, you retracing the steps that you took in the past. It undoes that. How does it do that? How does it undo that? And this is where the miracle comes in too. It's like, so by letting go of the past instead of recycling it, so to speak, you you are becoming free of it by a different experience, by the experience of your inner light, by the experience of the miracle, seeing that for a moment, oh, I'm not ruled by time. Whatever happened before is over, it's gone, like it is over. It is the past by which I was upset, but the past is over. It can in fact touch me not. So is it present now? Is it ruling now? Like, no, the past does not live in the present. It is over. So coming closer to the end of time, or coming closer to the present moment, you see the past in fact dissolve into nothingness, because it does not it does not crystallize or materialize in this present moment. It is over, it's gone. So in that sense, the atonement sets you free of past mistakes. So you could also say, like, and this is where the atonement also is used for, is like becoming free of sin, like becoming free of past mistakes, of your sinful acts, as we said it before in religion. It's like that's an atonement too. Setting yourself free from your sins, and however you did that in the religious practices. But here we use it directly just to set yourself free from the past. Like the past would be a deviation. If you live in the past, you're in fact not aligned with truth. So it needs to come together again in this present moment in order to have a full experience of your communication with God. Otherwise you will not experience that. It's like it can only be experienced when you're free of the past ideas, that you don't let them rule this moment. This is in fact entering into the atonement. And so you cannot get yourself out of it. You cannot think yourself out of your past mistakes. You have tried that, but they came back and they came back. So that's why we have the device called the miracle, where you literally temporarily step out of time, like you literally go into invisibility, or go out of time for just a moment to remember that this has not occurred, that this is over, and that you're in communication with your creator. So that's really good to remember, and that's also like the miraculous part of this. This is our work, so to speak. This is why we do the miracle work. And it is not really the doing of the miracle work. The miracle work is stepping back out of this moment to allow that change to occur. So you had specific ways of behavior, like we read a moment ago too. It's like you had certain ways of behavior ruled by the idea that you live in time and have an existence here. And by letting that be reinterpreted for you, you actually see that there's a whole different way available, where you step into eternity or infinity for just a moment and return back into time with a new configuration, you could say, with a new frequency that you take with you. So everything is changing, and it's changing quicker than you can possibly imagine. So it's like we take quantum leaps in the moments that we allow this miracle to happen. Oh yeah, so as long as there's a need for atonement, there's a need for time, right? Because we literally live out this whole process in a timeline, in an idea of time. So you cannot learn everything at the same time. That's why there's a plan for the atonement. It's not your plan, but it's a plan that is actually working. So you're going to choose what you want to take at a certain time for your undoing. Like whenever you're ready for the next thing, it will present itself for you in time. So you can go through the episode of healing, you could say, that can take place now because of your willingness. But the atonement, as a completed plan, does have a unique relationship to time. Until the atonement is finished, its various phases will proceed in time, but the whole atonement stands at the end. At this point, the bridge of the return has been built. The atonement is a total commitment. And you still think of a total commitment in terms of loss. You think that if you need to totally commit yourself to the atonement, that you're going to miss out on some time experiences. While, of course, that is not true, like in reality, that's not true, because the atonement plan is, in fact, completely in alignment with your return to your true self. If that is your focus, if that is your commitment, then it's really easy. And if you have a different plan yourself, then it's going to be conflictuous. So that's just the way that goes. So it does not need to be associated with loss. You can, but that, say, inherent in that is a trust that you will need in order to let go of this idea of loss. You have to trust the plan of atonement for you. If you do that and you commit yourself totally to it, by just allowing the changes to occur that come to you, the situations that occur that come to you, inviting the miracle in your daily life into all the steps, then it becomes easy, because you're continuously also rejuvenated by the experience of the miracle. Like that will give you experiences of light and connectedness. You feel that you're on the right path. You feel that everything is working out. You, in fact, experience the love that you recognize yourself to be. That's why that is so important. So the idea of loss, we're talking about that. This is the same mistake all of the separated ones make in one way or another. They cannot believe that a defense which cannot attack also is the best defense. Except for this misperception, the angels could have helped them. So, and here's a biblical reference too, it's really interesting. So what do you think the meek shall inherit the earth means? They literally take it over because of their strength. Well, this asks for some more words. So this same mistake of loss, all the separated ones make in one way or another, they cannot believe that a defense which cannot attack is also the best defense. So it's like you see that if you don't commit yourself fully to the atonement, or have ideas that you're going to miss out on something in your life by dedicating yourself to this, you see that in fact you do the same thing as all the separated ones do in one way or another, and that's in fact defending yourself against the truth, like holding it off in order to experience something else. But this becomes increasingly painful for in fact all of the separated ones, because the plan was made to reduce the pain and to dissolve the pain. And so you can struggle as long as you want, you could say, in this time sequence. You can struggle as long as you want, but it will not be endless, because this plan of atonement will come to you. It's inevitable, because it's working you. In fact, it brings you back home. It will bring you back home. It's inevitable. So that's why these defenses are in fact an attack upon yourself more than anything. Like the atonement principle is just returning you back to your self heritage. You know, it's like you're entitled to it, and nothing else. It has no other meaning than to give you full happiness and connectedness. So anything else you're looking for, go ahead, but it's not going to do anything. Like your defenses against it actually don't work in the first place. So the miracle turns the defense of atonement, yeah, the miracle turns the defense of the atonement to the protection of the inner self, which, as it becomes more and more secure, assumes its natural talent of protecting others. The inner self knows itself as both a brother and a son. You know that when defenses are disrupted, there's a period of real disorientation, accompanied by fear, guilt, and usually vacillations between anxiety and depression. Like in this process, you see that there are changes that are taking place, and you could see them as disruptions. Like it's a moment of disorientation that takes place. So it's like you got yourself deeply into the time idea. You got yourself deeply into, this is what I want. I do it my way. I choose to go for my human existence. In fact, whether you do that consciously or not, it doesn't matter. So now suddenly there's you're like knocked off your horse. It's like you're chasing Christians, like Saul. You're chasing Christians because you love it. You love to do that, and suddenly you're knocked off your horse, and you find yourself returning back to a whole different, practice, and that's in fact starting to teach Christianity. This is what happened to Saul. You know, that's a beautiful example, because it makes it very clear how defenses work. So you're convinced of an idea. You're convinced of what you're supposed to do in this world. Like, I'm going to set up a huge social media business, and I'm going to be very successful. And I generate a lot of money and become like famous and all this. This is my plan. Suddenly, I'm knocked off my horse. So that's not working anymore. It's like something is shown to me that what I'm doing, I cannot do any longer. So this brings moments of disorientation, that you, in your definition of yourself, don't know how to function anymore. Like you go to your office, you still try the best to make the best out of it, but it's not working the way it ever was. You know, it's like you're not sure of anything in this. Like, am I supposed to continue this? Am I supposed to do this or that? Change my business, or maybe get rid of it altogether. Like you walk around with a deep, in fact, vacillation between anxiety and depression, because you're literally not able to continue the game that you were playing with yourself, to defend yourself against what you're actually supposed to do in this timeline. So that's just one example. And I see that is happening. I recognize that in my own process of transformation too. The first time was pretty intense, like a great disruption of what I thought I was doing here. I live with a family, I'm making my arts, working in my studio, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly I dive into a deep experience of connectedness and literally listen to the perfect synchronicity of the universe, and have some kind of shortcut in which I'm not able to continue that whatsoever. now what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to behave? What am I supposed to, like this? So this happens to you in your transformational path, whether that's an intense disruption or whether that's a light disruption, it really doesn't matter. Like, we all have our own individual process with that, but it is essential to go through these you could say like rapids in the river. The miracle turns the defense of atonement to the protection of the inner self, which, as it becomes more and more secure, assumes its natural talent of protecting others. See, this is important. Like, you start to trust the miracle, the alternative in your situations. You start to trust it more and more because it actually gives you more and more a deeper, peaceful experience. Like, you have your moments in which you really feel connected, that take you out of the situation that you found yourself in a moment ago. And you start to discover others too that are experiencing this, where you can share it with. So this is really beautiful. So the inner self knows itself as both a brother to other brothers and a son of God. You know that when defenses are disrupted, there's a period of real disorientation, accompanied by fear, guilt, and usually vacillations between anxiety and depression. The reinterpretation, though, of defenses are not disrupted, but their use for attack is lost. So the reinterpretation of defenses, they are not disrupted, but their use for attack is lost. Since this means they can be used only one way, they became much stronger and much more dependable. They no longer oppose the atonement, but greatly facilitate it. The atonement can only be accepted within you. So it's like something is really drastically changing then in you, in your experience of yourself. The reinterpretation of defenses, they are not disrupted, but their use for attack is lost. So it's like you're going to use the fact that you're in time, you're going to use this now, for instance, constructively, instead of delaying time and moving off into detours in your life. Now you stay focused. You actually start to use your time really well and dedicating yourself to the atonement instead of the other way around. Like wasting time, you could say, or making time, delaying your homecoming. So that's the great thing about the process that is taking place in you by your acceptance of the atonement. It becomes like, yes, I'm having my practice. I'm using time to do the lessons, for instance, to really dedicate myself to constructively using time to return back home, because I start to feel really good about the miracles that I experience and the connectedness that is taking place and the energy that I feel. Like, literally my inner light is being awakened by this practice, and it literally inspires me to do more, to dedicate myself fully to this, or to have a total commitment to the atonement, and allowing any changes that appear to be happening, just allow them instead of fighting them or delaying them. And this can be in any form or any way that it comes to you. Like, literally, don't be afraid of the changes that are taking place. Allow them to occur. Don't have an idea about them, in a sense. It's like, leave your ideas for what they are. Just stay with it. You don't need to decide to increase it or to disrupt it or anything. No, it's like that's already taken care of. Like that's not done by you in a certain sense. It's like allow this process of change to occur in you, because it will give you exactly what you need in the right time, and in a way that you can handle. That is the beauty of it. If you go with that, if you literally listen to the changes instead of trying to force them for yourself. Really important. An atonement prayer lesson from the 220 plus from the big book. So there's all prayer lessons after 220. We started doing this in the daily lessons now too. So yesterday it was 222, now it's 223. So maybe that's a perfect atonement lesson. If I can find everything back that I think I need. What did I do with my... Oh yeah, I'll try these then. Oh yeah, I was looking for my glasses. How interesting. So okay, so 222. Oh yeah, see, this is a beautiful atonement prayer. That's today's lesson, 223. God is my life. I have no life but His. That's the atonement principle, you could say. It's like, God is my life. I have no life but His. And here's our process. I was mistaken when I thought I lived apart from God, a separate entity which moved in isolation, unattached and housed within a body. Now I know my life is God's. I have no other home, and I do not exist apart from Him. He has no thoughts that are not part of mine, or that are not part of me, and I have no thoughts but those which are of Him. So here's our prayer. Our Father, let us see the face of Christ instead of our mistakes. Well, here's the atonement. Like, let us see the face of Christ instead of our mistakes. For we are your Holy Son, and we are sinless. We would look upon our sinlessness, for guilt proclaims that we are not your Son, and we would not forget you longer. We are lonely here and long for heaven where we are at home. Today we would return. Our name is yours, and we acknowledge that we are your Son. Our name is yours, and we acknowledge that we are your Son. We are lonely here, and we long for heaven, where we are at home. Today we would return. God is my life. I have no life apart. I have no life but His. So that's our atonement prayer, like a miracle prayer. So with that, thank you for your attention. Thank you for taking time to listen to this or to be part of this. And it's great to discover, it's great to discover. It's great to save time of suffering, so to speak, in order to recognize I can trust my inner light. I can connect with that. I can let that rule. I can devote my life to miracles, you could say. It's like the time that I'm here, I'm going to use constructively to reawaken, to experience the reawakening of my inner light. So thank you for that. See you soon.